welcome to another episode of the Border Hookups Go RVing.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about security on the road as you're living in your RV. Now, today's episode is not meant to scare you. It's just meant to give you some tips about how to stay safer on the road and how to enjoy your camping experience even more. Now, some of these tips kind of delve into the general RV, how to keep your RV safe, but mostly we're going to talk about how to keep you safe on the road.
So here are some of the tips that we try to use when we're traveling.
So we have a lot of tips, and so therefore we're going to cheat and we're going to use our notes because we have so many. We have 3 pages worth of tips that we came up with and that we have learned from other people having talked to them about being full-time on the road.
And from our experience on the road as well. And we want to make sure that we get all of those tips out there in this episode for you guys.
So tip number 1 is be aware of your surroundings. And what I mean by that and what we mean by that is that when you're pulling into your campsite, look around, see what's going on. And then, you know, when you get there and you're setting up and if you see the same car driving around and around and around, take note of it. It may mean nothing, it may mean something, but at least you're paying attention to it. The other thing is that be aware of the weather. That's kind of an RV thing, but be aware of the weather. What's coming in, what's floating in, look at your radar. We have my brother, who's our weather guy, and he lets us know, trust me, there's not a cloud that wisps into our campsite without getting a phone call from my brother. If you have a meteorologist in your family, that's the person you need to connect with. And
we have experience with this. If you haven't seen our storm episode, we have gone through a couple of really bad storms in our RV. One of them, we had a tornado warning. A tornado came through not super close to us. We thought it was going to be, but there was a terrible thunderstorm. We had a power line go down right outside of our RV, and it was really, really scary. And so just know where your shelter is,
Yep.
Wherever you are, and watch the weather.
Yeah, definitely pay attention to that. Good point.
And the other thing that Dave talked about, being aware of your surroundings, you also want to trust your gut. We've had a couple of situations where we pulled into a spot that we were supposed to stay at, and I looked at Dave and said, I'm not feeling so great about this, and he said, I'm not feeling so great about this, so we decided not to stay. We just went on. Even if you have to stop at a Walmart and stay overnight or something, just trust your gut.
It's better to lose a $40 night stay than to be unsafe and be in danger. Mm-hmm. Don't ever be like, we paid for this tonight, we need to stay here. No, no, no. If it doesn't feel right, get out of there.
Get out.
Ditch the $40, it'll be the best $40 you ever spent. Another thing is when you arrive into a campsite, pay attention to how you got there. If you have a situation where you need to get out of there, especially at night, pay attention to the roads you took to get in. Maybe leave a breadcrumb trail on your cell phone if you have cell phone service.
And if possible, in that campsite or campground, you should know your exact physical address so that you can contact emergency medical services if, God forbid, something happens and you need to call them.
Another thing that we found really important is that always make sure that you're fueled up before heading into a situation or a location that you're not familiar with. It's very important because if you can fuel, take the opportunity to fuel. Same with your batteries. Have those charged up before you go to your next location, because you never know if you get into that situation, you're going to need those batteries, you're going to need a full tank of gas. So make sure you have all of that stuff ready to go before you get into that new campsite.
A great piece of advice that we did not come up with ourselves, but we saw somewhere on YouTube from somebody else, some advice from somebody else, was to bring your keys to your tow vehicle into your bedroom at night. And I think that is a great piece of advice, because if you hear something going on outside of your camper, you can just press your alarm, and then your tow vehicle alarm is going to go off and scream, and thieves will be running. Nobody wants to hear the alarm going off.
Right, and we have an F-250, If you've heard our F-250 horn, ain't nobody sticking around for that one.
It's pretty loud. That's true. That's very, very true. Another piece of advice is to leave the exterior lights on your RV, and we're not saying to leave them on if you have neighbors directly beside you and you have, you know, bright flashing lights. I've seen the lights underneath the RVs that are flashing, or the awning lights that are super bright, but we have an outdoor porch light, and then if there was nobody on that side of us, we would leave our awning lights on at night. Well-lit areas are places that thieves are not going to dabble in.
Another very important thing is, and this kind of goes less security and more RV safety, is that get a first aid kit. And not only get a first aid kit, know what's in your first aid kit. Don't look at your first aid kit the first time when somebody's strewn across the road and then you grab your starter first aid kit and then you have no idea what's in there. Is there a CPR mask in there? Are there gloves in there? Are there wipes in there? You have no idea until you break the plastic around it and you open it up. Know what's in that thing before you use it.
And know where it is.
And know where it is. Even better point, know where it is. If you don't know where it is, doesn't matter what's in there. I like that.
Well, you think that your RV is so small that everything is just right at your fingertips?
Oh no.
You'd be surprised at how many things you can't find. Another tip we have for you is to camp in groups if possible. There are several RV clubs out there, or you may run into people who you make friends with, and if you're going somewhere and you can invite somebody to come along with you, it's nice to have safety in numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely safety in numbers, and that's a really good idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Find people to go camping with. It's more fun.
It is more fun. Yeah.
You can leave your porch light on and bug the bejesus out of them all night long. Another good idea is when you are camping and you decide to go to the local pub and hang out for the night and have a couple of beers, light beers of course, make sure you're tight-lipped about where exactly you are camping, because you don't know who you're talking to, you don't know who's overhearing your conversation. Be vague. Vague is good. We're camping. That's all they need to know. Or we're staying in a hotel. Or we're just driving through. It doesn't matter. Be tight-lipped. They don't need to know the whole story.
Have a code with your travel partner so the other person will know if you're feeling uncomfortable in the situation and you feel it's time to get out of that situation. So we have a code. I'm not going to say what it is because
it's a high screech sound.
Then we would give it away, but you should really have a code so that you can tell the other person without alerting the people nearby that, hey, it's time to go. The next piece of advice we have is to choose a friend or family member to share your location with so that somebody knows where you are or where you're supposed to be. In our situation, we have two people, our daughter, who we just share a location with, and then my brother-in-law.
My brother.
Who we do Life 360 with, so that two people at all times know where we are.
Now this next tip isn't just about security, it's also about being smart, and that is arrive to your campsite with daylight left. Don't try to back your rig into a campground in pitch dark. The other thing is, if you arrive after dark, you really don't know what's going on around you, so you want to make sure that you get there with some daylight left. The other thing too is if you get there at night and you're not sure, if it doesn't feel completely 100% but you're not absolutely sure, stay hooked up. Sleep in your camper, chalk the tires, do what you have to do, but stay hooked up until the next day. And in that case, if you have to get out of there that night, you can still get out of there that night. And just stay hooked up, no rush. You can do it in the morning.
Bad things can happen when you're trying to unhook and get into a site when it's pitch black, or when it's dark and it's raining.
Yes, speaking from experience.
Yes.
And that was one case where we probably should have just stayed hooked up, chalked the tires, put the emergency brake on, and dealt with it in the morning. So here's a simple one. Lock your doors, lock your bays, lock everything down that you can lock down. Lock your generator, lock your surge protector, lock, lock your bikes. There you go. And the other thing is, keep your stuff covered up. because you don't want to let people window shop as they walk by. Make it a little bit more difficult for them. Cover the mountain bikes. Cover what's on your table. Get covers, get tarps, whatever you have to do. Make it look like a shanty town.
No.
No?
You don't want to do that.
Don't make it look like a shanty town. Just cover the expensive stuff.
Yeah. And I'm going to add to lock your door if you're inside your camper, and even if it's, you know, daytime and you have everything closed, why not just lock it?
Yeah.
Rule of thumb, if you're inside, you don't know what's going on around you, lock your door.
Yep. It's not that tough, and it's not being too careful. It's just being careful.
I used to do that in our sticks and bricks. If I was inside and I'm in the other room, or, you know, I have the doors closed, I would always lock. If I was in the backyard, I would have the front door locked, always.
If I went to get the mail, when I came back, the door was locked. Mowing the lawn, door locked.
That has happened.
Yeah, but you were safe, and that's all that matters.
Thanks. A great piece of advice is to not post the place that you're staying at on social media while you're there. Take all the pictures you want, put all the posts up you want, but make sure it's when you're pulling out so that people just don't know where you are. And not that there are a lot of horrible people in our lives. Well,
Right.
There are no horrible people in our lives.
We've had them weeded out. We've
Right.
vetted that.
But you just never know who might be following you on social media, and you just want to make sure that you're not posting that while you're there.
Right.
Especially if you are boondocking in an area where there are very few people around.
Moving on, read reviews of the campsites. Really pay attention to those. I don't just read the reviews. I also look at satellite stuff. I
Yeah.
see what's around there. And don't just read the good review and the first one you come across and say, oh, it's a great one. Go dig a little deeper. See what's out there, and kind of base your decisions off of that. They really make a difference.
Speaking from experience, we stayed at an RV park a while back that it had something to be desired, let's just say that. We were, you know, a little bit uncomfortable. We weren't afraid for like security purposes or anything, but it just wasn't a place where we were really enjoying ourselves or anything like that. And we actually left a review ourselves, and we just wanted to help out fellow RVers to make sure that if they're looking for a spot in that area, they won't go there.
Right. And that's a big thing too. If you get into a place that you feel isn't good, leave a review.
Yeah.
Campendium is where we leave stuff. We put it on the Facebook pages that we're members of. You know, it's not ripping on people, but it's saving other RVers a lot of hassle and keeping other RVers safe out there.
You should know what the cell signal strength is going to be at the campgrounds or BLM land that you're going to be staying at. And those are out there. Generally, people leave reviews on Campendium. I believe other sites maybe, but usually we look at Campendium, and they will tell you, the people who have been there already will tell you what the cell signal strength is there for all of the different carriers. Usually it's Verizon and AT&T, and it's just a really good idea to know what that is, because you don't want to be stuck somewhere that doesn't have cell signal at all, just in case of emergency. And
Right.
that was one of the places that we were going to stay, had no cell signal and a few other sketchy things, and we decided, you know, not to stay there. So be aware of that and research as much as you can.
And thank God for our case of signal flares, because we went through probably 30, 40 signal flares trying to reach out to people for help. Signal flares. Next one, get a pet.
Another tip that we have is to introduce yourselves to the neighbors if you feel comfortable. Or if you don't, maybe get out of your comfort zone a little bit and introduce yourselves to the people around you. And that way, if you're going to be gone doing something for a little while, you can tell the neighbors, hey, we're going to be gone. Can you just make sure that everything's okay? Watch our stuff and that sort of thing. So get out of your comfort zone. You might make a good friend. You might make some close buddies by doing that, and you'll have more fun.
You'll have more fun, and we did not follow our rule of thumb because our neighbor just walked by and we completely shunned the guy. Did a little wave, but we were busy.
Kind of busy.
We should have gone up and introduced ourselves.
A simple tip that most of you would be doing anyway is to make sure that you have your phone on you at all times. Don't leave it behind, have it with you just in case you have to make an emergency phone call. We've had to do that when we were staying somewhere that was a private area, private residence, and we had somebody coming in late at night. Thank you. And we had to actually call 911 because we didn't know what was going on and why these people were there. So make sure that you have your cell phone on you.
And it's not just that, it's being able to get a hold of each other too, so that if you aren't sure where the other person is, they didn't leave their phone sitting on the countertop, and then you can't get a hold of them.
Good point.
So this is one that we have heard many times, and we think is very useful, is having a ditch kit in your camper. And the reason for this is whether it be storms, security issues, not getting along with your spouse, you need to get out of there. These are some items that we would put in our ditch kit. One, and a little bit long here, flashlight and batteries, extra batteries with that too. If you've never seen Castaway with Tom Hanks, you'll know what I'm talking about. Copies of your insurance policy, copies of your driver's license, copies of your RV keys and your tow vehicle keys. Printed emergency numbers in case your phone dies and you need to use somebody else's phone. One of the lists that we saw was just have all the emergency numbers in your phone, but what if your phone dies? You should have those printed as well in your ditch kit. Energy bars, I like energy bars. Water, and a flashlight, I said that already, with extra batteries. Extra cash, have cash, cash is king. Cell phone with the emergency numbers in that as well, so then it's more quickly accessible. A poncho, stay dry, stay warm. A toothbrush and toothpaste. If you don't feel good, you're not going to act well, right? Yeah. A small first aid kit, knowing what's in there. Something that can be used as a signal mirror. It can be as easy as that Dixie Chicks CD that you don't listen to anymore because you downloaded it all, and you can use that as a signal mirror. Or you got to shave, you don't look good, you don't feel good, you're not going to act well. And then a survival blanket. And I kind of threw this in at the end because a survival blanket, those little silver blankets, they take up this much room. You might as well throw it in to have it, so you got to stay warm. Perfect. So that is our ditch kit list, a few things that we added. Again, if you have any more suggestions for that ditch kit list, we'd love to see those. Another thing to keep in mind is always have a backup plan. Don't push yourself to the end, getting into a campsite area or campground area that doesn't feel right, but you have no other options. Because by not having any other options, you're kind of seeding yourself into desperation. And when in desperate situations, you tend to make bad decisions. So always have that backup plan. Say, if this one doesn't work out, we can always go here or we can go there. So always allow yourself the opportunity to pivot and get out of that situation. Hey everybody, thanks for watching another episode of the Border Hookups Go RVing. Please remember to subscribe and to ding that bell so that we can let you know as to when we have more episodes coming out.
And if you liked what you saw, please give us a thumbs up, and please comment below, especially if you have any additional safety tips to share with us. And we hope to see you all out there.
We'll see you all out there.